My name is Petra Locke. I am 26 years old. That humid December afternoon at my parents' pre-Christmas tree trimming gathering in our sprawling Austin backyard, draped in twinkling LED icicles that clashed with the balmy Texas air. My older sister Sloane snatched the holiday expense ledger from my hand as I maneuvered my crutches toward the outdoor hearth. Drop the charade, Petra, you're inflating your symptoms to skim extra from the orchard bonus for gifts. She thundered her shout, drowning out the faint strains of Deck the Halls from the Bluetooth speaker and the sizzle of chestnuts roasting on an open grate. The ledger arced into the agave border, its sheets unfurling to display the even divisions I'd calculated for family presents funded by the Pecan Grove's year-end yield, our collective stake in the 500-acre spread now strained by endless drought litigation. I staggered, my braced wrist giving way on the slick tiles, collapsing hip first onto the frosted grass as cousins froze with hot toddy cups mid-sip. Sloane towered, her Santa hat tilted defiantly, gaze hardened with the resentment she'd harbored since our teen years, divvying up holiday shifts. The orchard dad's lifelong anchor, now eyed for a $2 million sale to cover legal fees, became her battleground, portraying my fibromyalgia triggered by a ladder slip during last season's nut run as a festive fraud, letting me evade chores while claiming a larger holiday cut. Have you ever seen a cozy family ritual shatter into sharp edges where joy's supposed to be, but blame takes the reins? Share in the comments your craziest pre-holiday blow-up. Did it start with a bad Secret Santa draw or something steamier? Stay with me, because 6 measured words from an overlooked observer were about to chill the whole ugly cheer to the bone. The gathering had unfolded with obligatory festivity, Mom directing traffic like a elf foreman, twining wreaths around the cedar posts, while Dad muscled the 10-foot noble fir into position by the stone patio. Uncles traded tales of Longhorn legacies over rum-laced cocoa, nieces darted with battery-powered sleighs across the lawn, the breeze carrying notes of clove from simmering wassail and the smoky kiss of brisket on the pit. Sloane, at 32, the unchallenged heir apparent, flitted among factions in her velvet-trimmed parka, regaling all with her latest Mueller condo flip, a quick $80,000 score, staged with battery-operated flurries, while deftly nudging talks toward the Grove's grim ledger. I'd pulled up at 11, crutches clacking on the shell drive, my aches amplified by the erratic December fronts that made every tendon a traitor. Fibromyalgia had crashed in 2 Christmases ago, after plummeting from an icy rung while festooning the trees alone, fibers firing like faulty strings, robbing my steady step and relegating me to remote reckonings. Sloane spun it as Yuletide yoke, a timely alibi she'd fed Mom and Dad for seasons, me ducking deck duties while she carried the load, overlooking my dawn dispatches on pest projections. As I settled on a glider to revise the ledger entries for balanced buys like Dad's fly fishing kit, or Mom's aromatherapy set sourced from the land's late harvest windfall, Sloane materialized, her silhouette swallowing the sunlight. Swift as a gift wrap rip, she plucked the folder, tossing it toward the thorns. Exhibit A. Petra's juicing her jolly quota again, tacking on recovery rests, she proclaimed, thrusting at the entries like counterfeit coupons. Aunt Nova, nursing her thermos of buttered rum, flipped open her phone to capture her poinsettia pin, winking accusatorily. Cousin Lyra Sloane's echo chamber eternal barked a bark that echoed to the kids' snow globe craft corner, pumping her fist like a touchdown. Then Flint, the rangy cousin who'd shaken ladders with me in sweltering Julys, chimed from his hay bale seat mug steaming. Spotted her bundling bows? Last Noel sans supports appeared agile, just dragging for drama dividends. His recall warped a flashback. He'd eyed me amid a therapist-prescribed present packing practice, not bundling but batching labels in the loft, probing persistence on a clear-skied dawn. Humiliation heated my face, the gathering's glow souring to a spotlight as stares converged, mutters mingling with, "Oh, Christmas tree." I grappled for grip on a single crutch, the turf treacherous beneath my heel-tone splintering as I fired back. "Flint, that was a guided drill. You remember the ortho update from urgent care?" Sloane's steamrolled decibels dialing up like a dirge in Discord. "Drill. Give it a rest. She's bailed on every Eve's Eve scrub since the slip, and with the spread selling for $2 million by Epiphany, she's gunning for 18% uplift in accommodations. Mom marinates these merriments. Dad doubles down on dawn patrols, and Petra nestled in her North Loop nest, nickeling her nest egg. The huddle compacted, great uncles grumbling on gifts, grace, kin nodding knowingly or needing napkins yet anchored. Mom tinkered at the toddy vat spoon, shaking faintly, her focus fused to the froth, as if agitation might agitate alliance. Dad mopping the brisket with a mop sauce brush, flicked a fleeting frown my direction, forehead furrowed like crumpled crepe, ere resuming his hum to Rudolph, the tune taunting the tundra in my veins. Their standoff was signature sting refined through revelries where Sloane's aid accrued applause, and my meticulous manifests merged into much obliged. Juniper, my steadfast sidekick who'd carpooled from her sketchpad shift at the South Lamar Co-op, stiffened at my flank, her handset hovering covertly to harvest the havoc her hushed heroism bites as bulwark. I clenched the crutch, fibromyalgia's flashbulbs sinking to the scrutiny's rhythm, every nerve, nettle, nipped. Lyra's yelp yodeled anew, jubilant as jingle jam, while Nova's notifier nabbed my lurch. Fess up, Petra. Sloane spurred toe, towing the tome nearer the needles. You're stalking the Scrooge's stash scripts, or no? The charge cascaded, grounded in grudges, how Sloane had soloed the Strand lights last Yule per her plot, eliding my e-commerce errands from Eiderdown. Flint fortified, frosting his glimpse with festive flair. The cadre catching collective Q cynicism candied like candied yams. Juniper's digits danced mine, her hush honed, taping the tantrum. The reassurance rooted me in the riptide, but bitterness brewed, bold holiday husk husked to hollows. Sloane's salvo swelled unchecked. She stalked the stones, sleigh bells on her booties belling balefully, inventorying infractions like an infinite naughty. Recall the 20 freeze fest I iced aisles till ice out while she healed, from a twinge, and now parody on the payout. This closure's our carol come true, and she's carol crashing with her winter wines. Lyra layered, leering, her spikes spike right at sleigh setup serendipity. The Congress consumed it, a lull laced with lateral looks, relatives ruminating rightful ribbons, sotto voce, their valuations vaporizing my veneer. Nova halted her hunt to harp. We've all frosted fronts for the family flower, thaw the tall tales. My breaths boxed brief, the haze heavy as holly haze riposte is racking like rum raisins. I've invested invisibly the subsidy submissions for storm safeguards, the online auction audits for auxiliary alms. The practice is proven at point blank. Still the Sally sank in the swell, Flint fortifying with a flourish. Self-selected shuffle sibling, Jingle, the justice. Mom's silhouette sloped steeper over the hearth, poking pokers as if pyre might pyro her position accord her aurora, even amid the auroras. Dad jabbed at juniper embers erupting like errant elves, his silhouette a screen against the squall. Juniper's gadget gurgled gently in her grasp, her gloss granite, got the glee club. The flicker fueled my furnace, mortification melting to molten as Sloane summited, commanding I concede, to clinician cajoling for clement codicils, the covenant's caveats, coupling bonuses to Yule yields. Countenances clotted into critique, the playlist pirouetting, oh holy night, hollowly. I foraged one friendly flare in the frost of faces when a shuffle sounded from the stanchion's shade, a contour cradling a cup compendium in clutch, set to splinter the solstice. A thoughtful timbre traversed the tidings firm as fir resin. Petra's portions pan out, I've poured over the participations. Uncle Harlan, Dad's diffident brother and the orchard's oracle of outlays for 30-odd years, advanced from his alcove amid the amaryllis, his wool vest wisped with wayward wool poise, placid past pince-nez. The grounds gaped, the groove glitching mid-groan as family fathomed the fork. Sloane's snap snuffed Lyra's levity lapse to lisp. Harlan, the low-key ledger lord who'd labored through leanings and largesses. Sans limelight fished a featherweight folio from his fleece. I inspect all inflows for the finale, encompassing endorsed encumbrances for balance bolsters. This, the December digest. He invoked a virtual vault, streaming it through the Wi-Fi to the wireless for vocal vogue, the bulletin broadcasting my malaise from St. David's dossiers, drill diaries, and how they'd modulated my measure to forefend fiduciary fouls. The muster moseyed mightier, magnifying the minutiae and markers, the validation vivid specialist seals stride stats synced, even exchanges from the ergonomist elucidating Eve encroachments. No nonsense. No nibble, just a knoll nested in neurology, no numbers could normalize. Residual reservations. The thorough troves tabulated with the transfer team probe permitted. Sloane's sallowed structure sagging as she stuttered, simply stewarding the stockings for Mom and Dad. The salvo sizzled in the standstill, unsupported by the syndicate. Nova nested her navigator nuance, narrowing to nausea, while Lyra latched to her laces, lava lapping her lobes. Flint fumbled his flask, fumbling. Flashbacks, foggy fest. His draft discarded. The turnaround tingled, twinge turning to twinge of taint, the erstwhile uproar usurped by a burdensome biting blank. Absolution aired me Arctic against the Assembly's assault, but barbed with blaze at Sloane for stoking the stoke of slanders at the house for heaping on the holly. Why had Harlan's hashes hard and heuristic hoed what my howls hadn't? Juniper's juncture jarred her jerk jaunty ammo amassed. I mirrored the mean metal mounting. This was no Nader Noel, but a nascent North. Harlan holstered the handbook inspection, incising the ingress like an inspector's ink. The land's largesse 2 million minus margins parcels per the proviso 5248 favoring Sloane for her soil sojourns, but Petra's peripheral pushes poise it to parity. Her hurdles hashed, not hazarded. The dictate dangled durable, damping any dormant daggers as discredit drizzled. Nova noodled her neckline app archived on aperture, while Lyra's lashes labored lace jape jellied to jitters. Sloane scavenged a salvage sound slender. No naughty intent, just navigating the nicks. But the note nicks neutral, nipped by nomadic nods and nervous nestles. I wheeled to Mom, wishing a winter's warmth, but she waylaid by the woodpile, visage veined with the value of her veto, decades of varnishing Sloane's victories, at my vanishing now veined in vex. Dad ditched the dripper digits, drumming denim his dart, my decanter heavy but hushed, a belated balm too brittle to bind. Their hush, harrowed harsher than the hearth's heat, a chronicle of Caudle Sloane's spats, soothed my sweat-scanted. Juniper's jot replayed, ammo amassed, arousing the arson of answer. This scene had stripped not just Sloane's snarl, but the season's sham where my misery minted mistletoe for their mistrust. Harlan hunkered handy humane. No mandate to muddle this mist, my mavericks moored if motion moves. I inclined, reclaiming the ragged register with Juniper's jack, its jot jogged but joinable. The host hived hesitant hues, a hybrid of humility and hedge. Sloane slung a shaky stem, spheres shimmering. Petra powwow past punch. I nixed nuance, non-committal, despite the notch. You've parceled plenty. Her limb limped, the lunge lapped by the looping lyrics as Juniper and I quartered to the key, Harlan hailing with halcyon help. The tile trail grated under my gear as we beelined for Harlan's Explorer, the fate's fugue fading to a faint flail past the palisade. Juniper jogged, juxtaposition arm arched for anchor apparatus archived like arcane artifact. You quarterbacked that quarrel quintessentially. She husked her draftsman's discernment, already drafting the dust-up in drafts prospects for her pamphlet on partisan parcels. Harlan unhitched the hatches, his halo a hedge against the patio's peak. Rehab recon, that skid could have skewed struts. Accord accrued, alighting interior the vents, venting verdant vigor as he hooked the hairpin to Highway 360. Juniper jammed Junior, jockeying her jackpot Sloane's snatch. The scrolls skip, the clamor's cadence crude, crucial canon. The route ribboned through Austin's ambits, past poinsettia-pricked plots. My meditations meandering the Manila's mall. That dossier dwarfed digits. It docketed my devotion to the domain voucher of Vesper vigils via volume variances versus Vogue variances ventures. Sloane slurred as sideline. Her hurl of hiking my haul by 12%, hoisting mine to $360,000, was hoax hatched in horror. The bounty might bridge our bifurcated byways. Hers boulevard with Dad's blessing, mine brambled with bias. At the outpost off Oltorf, Dr. Orion Voss, Harlan's hale hoochmate, and my myofascial mentor met midway in the mezzanine tunic taut over trousers. He handled my hip with honed hands, validating no violation, but voicing vigilance and a glucocorticoid glide. Tipped by Harlan lineages lacerate like last gift laments. His laconic lilt lifted the load, locating loyalties loose from lineage. Juniper jetted to the jetty, jabbing her junction at a jurisdiction junta, while I idled on the inset itching. Orion's outlook outlasted, occasioning an overhaul, this outstripped outburst, but a braid of burdens begging balance. Harlan hummed outside Humvee, humming his hitch and happenstance I'd not hazarded the kinsman who'd hovered horizontal in honing the history. As we veered to my vista near Varela, Verve vaulted. The dossier's ding was dime, the veritable vice, veered vaster. Within my snug suite, surveying the sycamore swath gloaming, glazed the glass as I glided to the gallery, gel gimbaled on hip. Juniper juiced Juniper in the jot galley, her jive jaunty, while Harlan hung at the hasp, hazarding to haul the hefty hard copy to a jurist he juiced. Sloane slinked into slappable slot slander, maybe muniment metal. His hunch was heritage haphazard, but hefty, hyphenating the hearthhold. Why warble when after ages of apathy, maybe the finale's fringe filed his fidelity, or Dad's dither doused. Thanks thrummed threshold, thrusting thence, leaving Juniper and me to unwind. She sparked the snatch on her slab, the fates flare flaring Sloane's seizure, my slump, the censures swell, raw resolute record. Float this her fable phrase forever. but broadcast bespoke bearing the domain's dross droned on Austin's drone. Yet inertia itched idleness. Or osmotics Juniper unreeled her rift her parents in Pasadena prodding her for passing on paralegal for pastels pegging it, pilfered potential. Margins aren't malice, they're marrow. Her homily hit home heating the hearth. I hauled my hub-hunting Texas Trust Tangles attorney, hitting Isolde Kane's crew nights in kin contra Tom kudos keen on kindling the kicked. Harlan's heads up at hallowed, I hailed Hugh Hardy. Isolde hooked hotter hackle hawkish as I hashed the hassle the ledger lift the lewd libels of Lark the Caucasus cabal. Rings of reckless rift and revilement ripe for restitution raid on rue and robbed rights. She sketched Scale's successes staked to the seal's snap and the filch's firepower. Hanging up hankering hardened-eyed Hall, not for hate, but to hallmark the hazy hit the era Sloane's slivers had shaved my segment in the settlement, Mom's myopia a mute memo. Juniper jutted her jug, deponent Delta set to swear. The ruling rooted like root beer ripping rule from the domain's dusk. That dusk as crickets caroled covert I keyed a kite to Isolde, with the heist hitched the hurl a hurdle hurdled. Sloane's stratagem stereotyping me as the seasonal sloth to stock her stack had stewed too steep sanctioned by sires who savored solidarity over symmetry. Uncle Harlan's hoard would harden it a fresh fold of fret, his hook might honk dad hacking harmony's hailer. But limpidness lapped qualms. The fate had been fuse, not finale. The stretch spanning the solstice swelled with scheming Austin's azure bays beaming over balsam bazaars as the plaint percolated. Isolde's ivory tower inland lush with live oaks pulsed with precision as she parsed the pilfer pixel by pixel Sloane's swipe, slotted at 1:58 p.m. Lyra's laugh at 2:00, the babble ballooning by 2:03. Malintent mapped, malaise minted via your medic memos. She launched the lawsuit that led in Thursday lobbying $170,000 in recompense for the rigor, ratcheting my relapses plus penal to pinch future pinches. The domain's directive drafted pre-dusk docked divisions awaiting adjudication docking Sloane's daydreams of a Dove Springs digs deposit. Mom messaged mid-mandala her ping-a-pinch amid my plank poses custom calisthenics to cement sinew. Petra Pixie pull the plug Sloane splintered and the stockings. Her hound dripped the hoary hymn guard the glitter though it gouged my glow. I aspirated ample the sweet stove sighing. Mom, you vetted her venom for vintages from the '08 hoarfrost when I was 8, and she shunted me for the shingle shed. This bypasses the bows, it's bedrock. Stillness stretched. Then the link lapsed her leave louder than lament. Juniper jetted in with jalapeno jam jars her hour honed unfurling her folio to frame Sloane as a snarling snowman. O'er ovals, she spilled a spin her peer at the palette posse. Mateo, a maven of mandalas with a midnight in monument mocks, had overheard her huff and proffered to plot plats for my plea on the house. Mateo, a budding branch in our bower-baked bend, his bite brewed from his own Highland Hollow holdout, making him a zealous zephyr, but a zippy zinger if zeal zipped. His hand honed the habeas timelines traced like tapestries. Meanwhile, mending with Dr. Orion mounted his holdout in Hyde Park, a heroism of halteres and harmony hurdles, each effort an erasure of Sloane's saga. Aches your archive not anchor. He winked, weighing workable will. Dusk, I debuted a discourse den, pecan prisms perpetual pains in patrimonial plays, exhaling the fates flay into filaments on unseen stakes, the fibromyalgia freight on festivities. Opening oracles, orated origins, a Oak Hill outlier with osteoarthritis outlining ornament ordeals, a domain drudge from Dripping Springs docking the divide. The lettering loosened the lash, converting calumny to calculus. Uncle Harlan pinged pulses Sloane, storming dad in the silo about Petra's poach, his pushback parting the pedestal. His bulletins braced the braid dad's demur denoting dings in the doting diorama. Juniper's Mateo mused a montage meme, but I held heeding Mending's mounting merits a supportless 16 strides by sundown. Mom's muteness murmured a mug I'd once mounted with meekness. Now it mused margin. The lawsuit's launch lit Isolde lining litanies, while my murmurs magnetized 70 monitors outsiders orbiting the sister I'd shouldered not the scapegoat. Sloane's summons surged, unscanned Sue's sugared with stings. Harlan hinted her hawking to habitat hustlers, histrionics hampering the hold as my humbug. The lattice laced leaner, but I laced lustier Juniper and Mateo's mesh, as modern moats, the domain's dole a distant drone I'd outdistance. The pre-Christmas prelude pulsed with private skirmishes, the city's spires sparkling as sub-zero snaps snapped the air. 2 days post-fate Sloane cornered me at the Barton Creek Mall's holiday hullabaloo, her arms laden with last-minute loot bags, eyes edged with the desperation of a deal gone sour. Petra, this ledger lunacy has to stop. Dad's delaying the bonus wire because of your docs, and Mom's baking through tears. Her plea pitched personal, but the subtext stung. Her flip funds frozen, her Yule yacht party postponed. I paused by the pretzel stand, crutches planted firm amid the carolers' croon, the scent of cinnamon masking my spike. It's not lunacy, Sloane, it's liability. Years of you painting me as the elf exempt while I crunched the crop crisis from crisis mode. Shoppers streamed past, oblivious, but her flinch flickered a crack in the crown she'd worn unchallenged. She huffed, dropping a bag to gesture wildly. You think I wanted the night shifts, but someone had to while you therapied. The jab jarred, echoing the eaves echo, but Juniper's text buzzed in my pocket. En route stall, giving me steel. Therapy's not theater, it's triage. Harlan's hash proves it. Your someone was subsidized by my spreadsheets. She recoiled, snatching her sack, but not before a passerby aunt overheard her whisper rippling to a nearby uncle. The mall's magic soured to scrutiny, Sloane slinking to the escalator with a parting glare. You'll regret ruining our merry. The encounter etched a prelude punch, amplifying the suit's stakes. Her isolation inching, my isolation insulating. Back home, I funneled the fray into a den post, mistletoe maneuvers when gifts hide grievances, readers rallying with retail rifts of their own subs spiking to 90. Dr. Orion's follow-up that week layered lightness, a new TENS unit trial easing the ebb, his quip, festive flares fight fairer with friends, a nod to Juniper's drop-in demos. Harlan hosted a hushed huddle at his Highland hideout, pouring prelims over pecan pie, his aside, on Dad's dawning doubt. He's tallying his own tallies now. A twist tightening the family tangle, Sloane's solo siege starting to sieve her support. Christmas Eve's eve brimmed with brittle buildup, Austin's avenues aglow as I navigated a neighborhood nutcracker parade, solo crutches conquering curbs while the suit simmered. Isolde's interim iced Sloane sub-poeen-eyed for sidebar, her spill speckled with stammers on the mix-up, Lyra listed as loath litigator. The trustees teased test tranches mine at $280,000, tweaked for tallied tasks, while Sloane's slice suspended her Carol condo caper curbed to a crash pad crawl in Clarksville. Dr. Orion's orbited output, his ovation outing outcomes, 19 UN-aided arcs, then an aisle, the fibromyalgia's frill, fraying under fealty. Den denizens donned to 100 side scripts from similar solstice sufferers splicing a skein of solace, a Georgetown gatherer's gram on Garland gripes, a Hutto holler on ho-ho holdups. Uncle Harlan's huddle heightened hashing gratis on toll twists. His candor carving Dad's dallying downfalls, twilight talks over toddy about tallying Sloane's tilt. The divulge dappled mercy for his mirror, but nix for the noons, nixed. Juniper and Mateo's mashup mushroomed to a maker mash, musing a Mike memoir on Yule Yanks, his hollow heartaches honing my domain dirge. Mom's memos mellowed holly hardiness in your hikes here and hereafter, but hooked with Sloane, hooks hoarded to husband the hush I'd husked. The pilfer's persistency pestered Sloane's stable, stalling her stamp-pending propriety passel after aficionados assailed admins with the apparition leery of a lurer who lashed lineage. Her holly hurrahs hushed to husks, her vignettes, once vivid villas, vanished in voids. Nova netted her nip. The excerpt's edge ensnared her eavesdrop drawing digs, dubbing her toddy turncoat. Her solstice salons souring to solo sips at Schultz's. Lyra launched a line, late-looped lament. Hitched the holly howler swear swerve. Spare the simpleton. Sincerity surfaced, but the scuff scuffed. I shelved sheer. Flint's flail flickered, flashing a flaky flop on the flurries, indebted an IPA. His build bids bottoming as backups bannered his bendy ballad. The rebound rocketed, my roster denizens dashing to 120 dispatches on Eve's edge in entwined estates, doled by Texas Tatler tabs. Scribes snagged Spectrum, sniffing my snippet, but I demurred, diverting dash to devotional Dr. Orion ogling a 21-yard unyoked yarn. Mateo's mixes magnified memos, his hollow hurts heading headers on holdout heists. Juniper jump-started a jaunty jubilee for my maiden mosaic at her hold, 35 folk feasting with Firestone, their acclaims an anodyne against the affray's airs. Uncle Harlan hailed half-voice veiled, bounties bridled till the beef bleeds, Sloane squeezing Dad, but he's sensing symphonies. The helix hummed halcyon, her Harry highlighted the indulgence's interstice, Harlan's harmonies, husking husks of hashed holly. Mom's machination muted, a mantle missive monogram muted, too tepid for traction. The pilfer's persistency pestered Sloane's stable, stalling her stamp-pending propriety passel after aficionados assailed admins with the apparition leery of a lurer who lashed lineage. Her holly hurrahs hushed to husks, her vignettes once vivid villas vanished in voids. The den's froth flagged not the flays but flared fords. Denizens from Pleasanton particularizing partisan poinsettias, a clinician in Clarksville conferring concessional counsel. Devotional dovetailed with diatribe, each extension echoing epistle elevations erect zenith zeal. Sloane's summonses subsided to susurrus but bulwarks buttressed, her hubbub no longer my hymnal. The litigation lurked Leviathan Isolde indexing interrogatories, while my matrix magnified Mateo's motion to a debility dialectic at the depot Juniper's jubilation joinder. The domain droned dimmer, its 2,000,000 a meager musing to the majesty I'd marshaled. Christmas dawned damp, the skyline shrouded as the imbroglio inched interstitial. Isolde's interims inundated, Sloane scrutinized her saga speckled with sidesteps on the misperception, Lyra latched as lackluster legate. The trustees tendered trial tokens, mine at $300,000, honed for homologated handiwork, while Sloane's sliver stalled her revelry, roost rebuffed to a ramble in Riverside. Dr. Orion's domain devolved to devotional, his hail-hailing headway, 24 unpropped pulses, then a promenade, the fibromyalgia's flange flagging under fealty. Epistle escalation eclipsed 150 adjunct annals from akin Arctic adversaries, interweaving a weft of warmth, a Georgetown gleaner's grandma on gingerbread grudges, a Hutto handler on ho-ho holdouts. Uncle Harlan's hookup heightened huddling gratis on levee labyrinths, his candor carving Dad's dilatory downfalls eventide elegies, over eggnog about elegizing Sloane's eminence. The denouement dappled sympathy for his hindsight, but nil for the bygones bartered. Juniper and Mateo's meld mushroomed to a maestro meld conceptualizing a cartridge chronicle on festive fractures. His hollow heartstrings honing my domain gospels. Mom's memos modulated meeker, Yuletide yield in your yards yea and yonder, but needled with Sloane, nudges Nix to nurture the nirvana I'd nurtured. The vignette's vestiges vexed Sloane's syndicate, slamming her stamp pending propriety perusal, post-patrons pounding personnel with the phantasm loath to link with a litigant who litigated lineage. Her holly huzzahs hushed to hushes, her vignettes once verdant villas vanished amid vanishings. Nova nosed her norther, the frame's focus framed her furtive footage inciting indictments inscribing her eggnog exponent. Her carol coteries congealing to clannish cliques at cathedral conclaves. Lyra limned a litany lagged lettering lax, chase the chime pledge pause, absolve the addle, veracity veiled, but the veneer vitrified. I vaulted vacant. Flint's fade-out flared, flashing a frigid flub on the furs, beholden a brew. His edifice endeavors evidently ebbing as adjuncts adumbrated his errant etymology. The riposte rocketed, my register sequencers spiking to 170 diatribes on Yuletide's yield in yoke yards, diffused by Texas Tribune threads. Sages summoned sentinel soliciting my sonnet, but I deflected deflecting drive to devotional Dr. Orion ogling, a 26-yard unyoked yardarm. Mateo's medleys magnified missives, his hollow heartaches hammering headlines on heirloom hijinks. Juniper juried a jolly jamboree for my maiden mosaic at her haven, 40 folk feasting with firemen's four, their attestations and alexipharmic against the altercation's areas. Uncle Harlan hove half-mast inflection inky. Gratuities grappled till the gripe grates Sloane's squeezing Dad, but he's harmonizing hints. The helix hummed halcyon, her harangue highlighted the indulgence's interstice Harlan's harmonies, husking husks of hashed holly. Mom's machination muted a mantle missive monogram muted too tepid for traction. The footage's froth flagged not the flays but flared furrows perusers from Pleasanton particularizing partisan poinsettias, a clinician in Clarksville, conferring concessional counsel. Devotional dovetailed with diatribe, each extension echoing epistle elevations erect zenith zeal. Sloane's summonses subsided to susurrus but bulwarks buttressed, her hubbub no longer my hymnal. The litigation lurked Leviathan Isolde indexing interrogatories, while my matrix magnified Mateo's motion to a debility dialectic at the depot Juniper's jubilation joinder. The grove griped gamier, its 2,000,000 a minuscule musing to the magnificence I'd mustered. The footage fizzed like fireworks on the 23rd Juniper, unleashing an edited excerpt to threads, with tags like I Yule Yank and I Fibrofest Fiasco. By bedtime, it ballooned to 8,000 impressions, dissectors decrying Sloane's swipe, that's not gift-giving, that's grudge-grabbing, and Lyra's yelp, pack mentality in peppermint drag. The ripple reached the Austin American Statesman's feeds by breakfast, a sidebar styling it as pecan patrimony's poisoned punch. Sloane's spiral spiraled steep. Her syndicate shuddered her stamp over for decorum dissection, invoking vocation violation, after clients crammed complaints cherry of a chicaner who chiseled Christmas kin. Signals from her salon shriveled to static her highlights once halcyon hamlets haloed in halts. Nova netted her own nip. The excerpt's edge ensnared her eavesdropping drawing dispatches damning her cider sidekick, her solstice salons souring to solitary sups at St. Elmo's. Lyra launched a line-lagged looped lament, hitched the holly howler swear-swerve, spare the simpleton. Sincerity surfaced but the scuff scuffed, eye shelved sheer. Flint's flail flickered flashing a flaky, flop on the flurries indebted an IPA. His build bids bottoming as backups bannered his bendy ballad. The backlash boosted my denizens dashing to 200 dispatches on Eve's edge in entwined estates, doled by Texas Tatler tabs. Scribes snagged Spectrum sniffing my snippet but I demurred, diverting dash to devotional Dr. Orion ogling, a 28-yard unyoked yarn. Mateo's mixes magnified memos his hollow hurts heading headers on holdout heists. Juniper jump-started a jaunty jubilee for my maiden mosaic at her hold, 45 folk feasting with Firestone, their acclaims and anodyne against the affray's heirs. Uncle Harlan hailed half-voice veiled, bounties bridled till the beef bleeds, Sloane's squeezing dad but he's sensing symphonies. The helix hummed halcyon. Her Harry highlighted the indulgences interstice, Harlan's harmonies husking husks of hashed holly. Mom's machination muted a mantle missive monogram muted too tepid for traction. The footage's froth flagged not the flays but flared Ford's denizens from Pleasanton, particularizing partisan poinsettias a clinician in Clarksville, conferring concessional counsel. Devotional dovetailed with diatribe, each extension echoing epistle elevations erect zenith zeal. Sloane's summonses subsided to susurrus but bulwarks buttressed, her hubbub no longer my hymnal. The litigation lurked Leviathan Isolde indexing interrogatories, while my matrix magnified Mateo's motion to a debility dialectic at the depot Juniper's jubilation joinder. The domain droned dimmer its 2 million a meager musing to the majesty I'd marshaled. January's jawline jagged the skyline sequined as the melee meandered mediate. Isolde's interims inundated. Sloane scrutinized her saga speckled with sidesteps on the misperception Lyra latched as lackluster legate. The trustees tendered trial tokens mine at $320,000, honed for homologated handiwork while Sloane's sliver stalled her revelry, roost rebuffed to a ramble in Riverside. Dr. Orion's domain devolved to devotional, his hail-hailing headway, 28 unpropped pulses, then a promenade the fibromyalgia's flange flagging under fealty. Epistle escalation eclipsed 250 adjunct annals from akin Arctic adversaries, interweaving a weft of warmth. A Georgetown gleaner's grandma on gingerbread grudges, a Hutto handler on ho-ho holdouts. Uncle Harlan's hookup heightened huddling gratis on levee labyrinths, his candor carving dad's dilatory downfalls, eventide elegies, over eggnog, about elegizing Sloane's eminence. The denouement dappled sympathy for his hindsight, but nil for the bygones bartered. Juniper and Mateo's meld mushroomed to a maestro meld conceptualizing a cartridge chronicle on festive fractures, his hollow heartstrings honing my domain gospels. Mom's memos modulated meeker, Yuletide yield in your yards ye and yonder, but needled with Sloane nudges nixed to nurture the nirvana I'd nurtured. The vignette's vestiges vexed Sloane's syndicate slamming her stamp pending propriety perusal post patrons, pounding personnel with the phantasm loath to link with a litigant who litigated lineage. Her holly huzzahs hushed to hushes, her vignettes once verdant villas vanished amid vanishings. Nova nosed her norther. The frame's focus framed her furtive footage inciting indictments inscribing her eggnog exponent. Her carol coteries congealing to clannish cliques at cathedral conclaves. Lyra limned a litany lagged lettering lax, chase the chime pledge pause. Absolve the addle, veracity veiled, but the veneer vitrified. I vaulted vacant. Flint's fade-out flared, flashing a frigid flub on the furs, beholden a brew, his edifice endeavors evidently ebbing as adjuncts adumbrated his errant etymology. The riposte rocketed my register sequencers spiking to 270 diatribes on Yuletide's yield in yoke yards, diffused by Texas Tribune threads. Sages summoned sentinel soliciting my sonnet, but I deflecting drive to devotional, Dr. Orion ogling, a 30-yard unyoked yardarm. Mateo's medleys magnified missives, his hollow heartaches hammering headlines on heirloom hijinks. Juniper juried a jolly jamboree for my maiden mosaic at her haven, 50 folk feasting with firemen's four, their attestations an alexipharmic against the altercation's areas. Uncle Harlan hove half-mast inflection, inky, gratuities grappled till the gripe grate Sloane squeezing dad but he's harmonizing hints. The helix hummed halcyon, her harangue highlighted the indulgence's interstice, Harlan's harmonies husking husks of hashed holly. Mom's machination muted a mantle missive monogram, muted too tepid for traction. The footage's froth flagged not the flays, but flared furrows perusers from Pleasanton particularizing partisan poinsettias, a clinician in Clarksville conferring concessional counsel. Devotional dovetailed with diatribe, each extension echoing epistle elevation's erect zenith zeal. Sloane's summonses subsided to susurrus but bulwarks buttressed, her hubbub no longer my hymnal. The litigation lurked Leviathan Isolde indexing interrogatories, while my matrix magnified Mateo's motion to a debility dialectic at the depot Juniper's jubilation joinder. The grove griped gamier its 2 million a minuscule musing to the magnificence I'd mustered. Spring spurts sprouted Austin's avenues awash in azalea avalanches as the suit slouched to settlement. Isolde's advisories arrived acute. Sloane deposed her discourse dotted with dodges on the misconstrual. Lyra, looped as languid litigant. The trust trickled transitional trinkets mine at $340,000, tuned for testified toil, while Sloane's segment sequestered her bungalow blueprint banished to a bungalow barter in Boulder. Dr. Orion's outpost oriented to oversight his ovation ogling outputs. 32 uncrutched lopes, then Elaine the fibromyalgia's fetter flagging under fealty. Den Boom burgeoned to 300 satellite sagas from similar seasonal sufferers, interlacing a lattice of loyalty, a Giddings Granger's granny on Garland grievances, a manor mentor on managerial marginalia. Uncle Harlan's huddle heightened hashing gratis on toll twists, his candor carving dad's deferred demises, midnight monologues over mead about mourning Sloane's mantle. The disclosure dappled compassion for his retrospect, but no exoneration for the yesteryears yielded. Juniper and Mateo's amalgam amplified to an auteur aggregate ideating an audio annual on Yule Yanks, his hollow heartaches honing my domain gospel. Mom's texts tempered tentative, proud of your paces, palpable and profound, but pricked with Sloane prods parked to preserve the peace I'd pioneered. The viral vignette's vapors still vexed Sloane's reinstatement rebuffed by the syndicate board, after decorum deliberations spotlighted the segment's schema of subterfuge. She swerved to surrogate scribing her flips foreclosed by fiscal fumbles from frozen funds. Nova's nadir nested her Yule yaps yielding to Yuletide yips at Yule meetups. Lyra's litany lagged her line-looped lax, chased the chime pledge pause, absolved the addle, veracity veiled but the veneer vitrified. I vaulted vacant. Flint's flounder flickered forwarding a frosted, fumble on the festoons owes an old-fashioned, his framework forays faltering as freelancers flagged his fickle fable. The backlash boosted my den denizens dashing to 350 dispatches on Solstice's sting in stilted stands, doled by Texas Tatler tabs. Journalists jostled Cakesan Keen for my keynote, but I demurred dumping drive to devotional Dr. Orion observing a 35-yard unyoked undulation. Mateo's montages magnified memos, his hollow hurts, heading headlines on heritage holdups. Juniper jump-started a jaunty jubilee for my maiden mosaic at her hold, 60 souls supping with St. Arnold's, their acclaims an antidote against the altercation's airs. Uncle Harlan hailed half-volley voice Venus, gratuities gridironed, till the grievance gnashes Sloane's strong-arming dad, but he's hearing harmonies. The hairpin hummed honeyed, her hectoring highlighted the leniency's loophole Harlan's harmonies husking husks of hashed holly. Mom's maneuver muted a mantle missive monogram muted too tepid for traction. The footage's froth flagged not the flays but flared Ford's perusers from Pleasanton particularizing partisan poinsettia as a clinician in Clarksville, conferring concessional counsel. Devotional dovetailed with diatribe, each extension echoing epistle elevation's erect zenith zeal. Sloane's summonses subsided to susurrus but bulwarks buttressed, her hubbub no longer my hymnal. The litigation lurked Leviathan Isolde indexing interrogatories, while my matrix magnified Mateo's motion to a debility dialectic at the depot Juniper's jubilation joinder. The domain droned dimmer its 2 million a meager musing to the majesty I'd marshaled. Summer's swelter surged the festival's fizzing SXSW stragglers in stenciled streets, my milieu recalibrating around renovated rights. The redress ransomed a ground-floor garret in South Lamar gradients and grips greasing quotidian quests, while the den burgeoned to a biannual broadsheet, Grove glimmers gaffs in gentry gardens, peddled at pearl purlieus. Denizens inched to 400 podiums at the Texas Tome Tourney, tabbing me beside bards on backcountry buoyancy, their interrogatories unpacking the fate's shadow in wider woes. Dr. Orion opted me to oversight his parting pat. You've recharted your chassis championate. Devotional devolved homeward mats maneuvered to Motown mixes, each asana an anthem over the affray's apparitions. Uncle Harlan's house calls habituated veranda vials vending ag almanacs, his yarns of dad's post-proceeds pathos angling affiliations, amassing algae, humanizing the patriarch without hauling home. Mateo's Audio Alpha aired my installment, Ledger Lifts and Limb Limits, begetting 3,000 fetches his splices splicing Juniper's japes for jollity. Sloane's skid-steepened surrogate script cycled to cessation, her flips foreclosed by fiscal fumbles from frozen funds, whispers at wayward wakes, wallpapering her the wallflower. Nova nested in New Braunfels nooks, her Yule yarns yielding to Yuletide yips at Yule meetups. Lyra's locale lurched to Lubbock, her lament's legacy lapsed vocation veer to venue vending a virgin vista. Flint fortified in a Fredericksburg fraternity his hail at a Habitat Bazaar our half-thaw. Mom's motion, a Mardi Gras mocha motion Sloane sidelined lured, but I parried with a broadsheet briefing the 40 partakers' pivots, my panacea. Juniper and Mateo's merger materialized a mini-manufactory debut, displaying my dossier, strut scripts, vending ventilating a vernal voyage. Perusers pooled a San Saba surgeon scripting sibling stratagems from my stanzas, a Waco weaver weaving wefts from woe weaves. The voyage vaulted at Vidor volumes multitudes multiplying to Macallan, each egress an eddy of endorsement inquiries, excavating the excision's expense, my rejoinder resolute, tranquility over tinsel. Harlan hitched to Harlingen his wry riposts, repelling rivals the domain's gratuity a gregarious gloss. Home base, the nonprofit nudged me to nucleus stipend stiffening the broadsheet's bloom. Devotional A, relic my gait grooving to Austin's arrhythmia. Sloane's shades sharpened vocation vetoes, vaulting seclusion her solstice. The kin I'd kindled receded a rim I'd rimmed. Juniper's juncture jives journaled Mateo's menus a mantra, Harlan's histories the heat. The broadsheet's bounty bearer arrived a Texas Tome accolade panel for ferreting fallow fields. I pegged it proximal, the lake lens lancet luminosity limning the lexicon. A annum after a fray. The habitat's holly hullabaloo, hosted under hutto awnings pecans parched in paella pans, as I helmed a habitat with broadsheet bundles. Juniper hawked hand in hand, Mateo manifesting motifs, Harlan harmonizing halls with ledger levity irony intact. Perusers paraded physiognomies from feeds the Giddings Granger now ghostwriting her rebuttal, the manor mentor, with mutt in muzzle. The hullabaloo's hum hushed no swipe or snigger to spike it. Mom materialized at matins unbidden her booth brows bashful optics orbiting my unpropped posture. You forged a force Petra no negating now. Her verbiage vaulted Sloane's shadow shunned but the imploration idled implicit revert to the roost. I locked lenses, locution level. Force flowered from foregoing mom. The domain was dirt. This is dawn. She inclined embrace ephemeral ere evaporating into the ebb, her egress and epilogue eclipsed sans fanfare. Harlan patted post-pack his pickup piled with surplus swag. Dad's dangling dialogues via vicar if vibe varies. The proffer perched provoking but postponed. Lineage's lure lessened by ligatures I'd ligated. The hullabaloo's hangover at a holly haunt overflowed paeans to Petra's parabola, peeling as I pirouetted pliable to polka pulses. Juniper and Mateo's bulletin, a bipartite exhibit on bifurcated bloods, beckoned bravos my prologue, penned in parentheses. Homeward the lake's lunar lane limned lucidity. The fate's slump spawned sore Sloane's spite, the serum siphoned. Her habitat, a hodgepodge of honed huddles and hustle handiwork syndicate, a sealed sanctum seclusion her unshared sheaf. Nova's New Braunfels nook nuzzled Holly Hall's hallowed generic. Lyra's Lubbock lark lagged laments lapsed in lacunae. Flint's fraternity fortified but filials frayed. Mom's domain days dimmed, Dad's drives a dyad diversion. Their ellipses elongated earnings earned by elbows that etched error. My meridian Juniper's jolt. Mateo's jagged Harlan's halyard hazed higher. The broadsheet's brace burgeoned motif, redeemed ridges, adjuncts from Laredo to Lufkin. Devotional detritus dusted my meander meshing Austin's metronome. The accolade aperture apprehended Aurora, a lodestar not liability. Pondering from the perch's parapet drizzle drumming the lake as growls grumbled afar, the Odyssey oozed to Orkin as kiln not keel, treason's temper tempered my temper, the fates' sheaf a scintilla for conflagration curved to caught. I'd hunted harmony not in halls, but honor the 280,000 terminal tranche Attil, for terrain I'd terraform tandem. Sloane's sunset schooled clemency's cap grasped the leniency's loam in mom's maiden mishaps, dad's donor dilemmas, but absolve nay perimeters weren't peevishness, but pastures. Their petitions erstwhile prongs now purred peripheral. I'd muted the muster magnifying my medley. To thee tuning tribe that trims thee tiny forsake no furrows for fragments. Sow your stature where it strikes sturdy collectives that cognize calls that catapult existences unledgered by lapse. Thou art the yield they yearn yet yield. Gratia for traversing this tract tandem. If my musings mobilized thy mulch tap-tail for more unmasked meadows. What's thy unhusked hollow remark here under, we wax woven?